everyone thinks their empire is safe, until the betrayal is already inside. Not from enemies, but from the ones who smiled with them. A smile you didn't question. A silence you forgave. That was all it took. So now ask yourself, who have you trusted? Just because they clapped when you won. There are mistakes in the world of power that aren't written in any book. Not in the law. Not in the speeches of noble men. And certainly not in the rituals of those who praise virtue. These mistakes don't make noise. They don't wear black cloaks. They wear smiles. They shake your hand. And they wait. When Caesar let Brutus stay close. When the Medici tolerated disloyal nobles. When empires forgave what should have been crushed. Their downfall began in silence. It wasn't war that destroyed them. It was the hesitation to punish betrayal. And history never forgives hesitation. Right now, there are cracks forming around your power. Not loud, not obvious, but they are real. A gesture you ignored, a person you're unsure about, a moment that felt wrong. You let it go, called it mercy. But deep down, you knew. It was weakness. What have you tolerated? In the name of peace, that may cost you everything. This is not for dreamers. Not for the people pleasers. This is for men who are building something that cannot afford to collapse. Power, reputation, legacy. Because what we're about to uncover are not just toxic traits. They are 7 silent poisons. And if you don't name them, if you don't act when it's time, you won't lose to enemies. You'll lose to the people who learn from your hesitation. So ask yourself one last time, what have you forgiven that you should have crushed? Don't just watch this video. Send it to someone who still believes that being good will save them. Because survival has nothing to do with strength and everything to do with what you no longer allow. What you tolerate today becomes the rule they use to destroy you tomorrow. They say loyalty is built over years. But Machiavelli had a different standard. He measured it by fire, by collapse, by the moment everything goes wrong. When the skies are clear, anyone can act loyal. When money flows and you're winning, everyone shows up to toast your success. But when the ship starts to sink, when your power is threatened, when the knives come out, that's when the masks fall off. Look around your life. Who disappeared when you needed them most? And worse, who came back with excuses once you survived? I didn't know what to do. I had things to take care of. I wanted to help, but I wasn't sure. You've heard them, but their silence said everything. Because when a man can vanish in your darkest hour, he will do it again. And if you forgive him, you've just declared to the world that loyalty isn't required. Only convenience is. Let me ask you this. Would Alexander the Great have tolerated a man in his ranks who vanished the moment the enemy charged? Or would he have cut him out right there on the battlefield? Every time you keep someone like that around, you train your entire system to become unstable. Because now, loyalty is no longer based on belief. It's based on calculation. How strong are you right now? Are you still worth serving? Or is it safer to stand aside until you're back on top? And once that calculation begins, you are no longer the leader. You are a symbol being measured. by eyes that no longer fear you. You don't need many people beside you when the storm comes. You only need one. But that one must be real. Because a single loyal person in chaos is worth more than 100 who raise their glass in peace. Machiavelli warned us. Betrayal during crisis is not just emotional. It is structural. It sends a signal down the chain. That power is soft. That loyalty can be delayed. That strength is optional. And once that belief spreads, you don't get rebellion. You get corrosion. Your power begins to rot, not from a sword, but from neglect, from hesitation, from your inability to cut loose what should have been severed. So remember this. Absence is not a mistake. It is a decision, and the man who abandoned you once will not save you next time. He may smile, he may return, but his absence already wrote his loyalty in bloodless ink. You might tell yourself, he had his reasons. He was busy. He didn't mean harm. But ask yourself, would you bet your empire on a man who disappears when it matters? If not, why let him stay near your throne? Never forget the faces who went silent when your name was questioned, when your vision was mocked, when you fell, because if they return and you allow them back, you're telling everyone else there are no consequences. And when there are no consequences, there is no power. The first betrayal is their fault. The second is yours. If this made someone's face appear in your mind, you know what you need to do. Send this to the man who once vanished on you, and see if he even reacts. Because if he doesn't flinch, you were never his leader, just a stepping stone on his way out of the storm. But what comes after betrayal is even more destructive. Not a knife to the back, but the fear that freezes your hand before the fight begins. There is something far more dangerous than betrayal. It hides in plain sight. It speaks softly. It delays. It hesitates. A coward sitting on the throne will destroy more than 1,000 enemies ever could. You think danger comes from the outside, from rebels, from rival kings. But Machiavelli knew the truth. The kingdom falls fastest when the leader fears his own power. And cowardice doesn't always look like fear. It wears masks. It disguises itself as morality, as diplomacy, as endless discussion. But at its core, it's the refusal to lead, the fear of responsibility, the paralysis when it's time to act. Have you ever seen a commander stall on the battlefield? His men waiting, his enemies advancing, and he says, "Let's wait. Let's think. Let's discuss again." By the time he moves, the damage is done, and it spreads like poison down the ranks. Because when the top hesitates, the bottom fractures. Now ask yourself, have you ever worked under someone like that? A boss, a politician, a team leader who delayed every decision, who never owned the outcome, who always blamed circumstances. How long did it take before you stopped believing in them? That's what fear does. It creates doubt, and doubt dissolves structure faster than bullets. An army doesn't collapse because it's outnumbered. It collapses when no one believes the man in front knows what he's doing. Machiavelli was brutal about this. He said, "Power belongs to the one who acts, not the one who waits for perfect clarity. Because perfect moments don't come. And when you wait too long, others will act for you. And that throne you sit on will slowly become symbolic until someone with sharper hands takes it. Some men wrap their fear in philosophy. They say, we must be ethical. We must be careful. But look closer. They're not afraid of doing the wrong thing. They're afraid of doing anything at all. Julius Caesar once faced the Senate alone. He didn't wait for permission. He crossed the Rubicon. And in that moment, every other man had to choose. Follow or fall. You cannot preserve power by delaying decisions. You preserve it by moving first, by owning the cost, by standing in the fire before anyone else does. You may not be fearless. No man truly is. But if you wear the crown, if others look to you, you cannot afford to hesitate. When the system trembles, because when people sense your fear, they don't just lose respect. They begin to prepare your replacement. So ask yourself, when you're challenged, do you speak second? Do you wait for the room to approve? Or do you command the room to move? Do people around you walk with certainty? Or do they mirror your hesitation? Because if fear starts at the top, then collapse doesn't need enemies. It just needs time. And once your people stop believing, the throne may still be yours, but the power has already left the building. If someone came to your mind while hearing this, someone you once trusted to lead, but they hid behind silence when the pressure rose, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Share this with someone who thinks inaction is wisdom, because indecision is the slowest form of surrender. Some enemies carry knives. Others carry compliments. You expect betrayal to come with conflict, but sometimes it walks beside you, smiling, praising, agreeing with everything you say. That's the sweet poison. Flattery. Machiavelli warned us. The enemy who flatters you is far more dangerous than the one who argues with you. Because the one who fights keeps you sharp, but the one who flatters makes you soft, blind, deaf to danger. So look around you. Who never says no to you? Who always agrees? Who praises your smallest idea like it's divine? Do they respect you? Or are they feeding on your pride? When Louis XIV ruled France, he built the Palace of Versailles into a golden mirror. Inside, no one dared to disagree. Only smiles. Only elegance. Only praise. And it worked. For a while, until the real threats came, and the court offered only more applause. No warnings. No truth. Just theater. That's what flattery does. It doesn't stab. It sedates. It tells you you're still powerful, even when you're not. It surrounds you with reflections, not reality. And once you start craving praise, you stop looking for truth. You become addicted to being right, to being admired. And when that happens, you're no longer a ruler. You're a performer. Flatterers are not loyal to you. They are loyal to opportunity, to staying close to power until power shifts. And when it does, they will shift with it. Have you ever noticed the one who compliments you the most is also the one who disappears fastest when trouble comes? That's no accident. It's a pattern, because their praise was never for you. It was for your position. And once your position weakens, so does their loyalty. They move on to flatter someone else. A real ally will make you uncomfortable, will challenge your thinking, will say what you don't want to hear, because they care more about your survival than your ego. So ask yourself, who around you has never challenged you? Who always smiles, always claps, but never warns? Are they loyal, or are they just careful? Because when you fall, and one day you will, those who only ever praised you will vanish first, or worse, they will join your enemies and say, I always knew this would happen. If someone came to mind just now, a voice too sweet, a friend too agreeable, you already know the danger. Send this to the person who flatters you the most and watch their reaction. Because if they're real, they'll laugh. If they're not, they'll disappear. And that is all the proof you need. You say you're a leader, but why are flatterers still so comfortable around you? You call yourself powerful. Then why do people around you lie to your face just to keep your favor? Power doesn't just live in titles or in weapons. It lives in the illusion that the one in charge cannot be touched. And once that illusion cracks, everything begins to unravel. Sometimes, all it takes is one laugh in the wrong moment, one mocking joke, one voice bold enough to challenge you. Not in private, but in front of everyone. That's where power bleeds. Because in that moment, they don't just question you. They teach others that questioning is allowed. Machiavelli understood this. Power is not killed by violence. It's bled slowly, by doubt. Have you ever watched a leader get mocked in public? A politician humiliated? A CEO disrespected in front of the team? They may smile. They may laugh it off. But the room has changed. People saw it. And something shifted. That's how public challenge works. It sets a precedent, a signal, a green light for the next person who wants to test the boundary. And it doesn't stop. One whisper becomes two. One bold gesture becomes many, until respect becomes ridicule. When Julius Caesar allowed senators to speak over him in the forum, he thought it was strategy, tolerance, appeasement. But all it did was tell the crowd, Caesar is no longer above them. It ended with blades. When Napoleon was first mocked by his own officers during retreat, he didn't stop it. He ignored it. And they stopped fearing him. Within weeks, his own army began to dissolve, because power is not lost in silence. It's lost in the crowd. Now ask yourself, who challenged you in front of others? And you let it slide? Who laughed at your decision? And you brushed it off to stay polite? Who planted doubt and left you looking weak? You thought you were being calm, controlled, strategic. But what others saw was that your power could be tested. Never forget this. It's not about ego. It's about precedent. Because when people see you tolerate public defiance, they stop respecting the position and they start testing the limits. Power doesn't demand cruelty, but it requires clarity. And public disrespect must never go unanswered. Not with rage, but with precision. Because every eye is watching, not your words, your reaction. And from that reaction, they decide, is he still the leader? Or is he just pretending? If you've ever watched your authority dissolve because you tried to stay calm, if someone mocked you once and you laughed it off, but it still echoes in your memory, then you know exactly what this is. Send this video to someone who's leading right now and remind them, it's not what they say that holds power. It's what they allow, who used to stand behind you in weakness, but now looks you in the eye as if you're equal or less. Watch how they act when you stop giving. Watch how cold they go, how quickly they distance. Because the ungrateful don't follow people. They follow momentum. They follow gain. Machiavelli never said, don't show mercy. He said, don't show mercy to those without honor. Because when you save a snake, its gratitude is not loyalty. It's calculation. It waits until it no longer needs you. And then it bites. If someone you once helped has now turned cold, if the more you gave, the less they respected you, you are not imagining it. You were never their leader, just a tool on their way up. Send this to the person you once carried and see if they flinch. Because if they don't, you were never someone they admired, only someone they used. But there's one poison that doesn't speak sweetly. It doesn't thank you. It doesn't flatter you. It waits. It hides behind talent, behind usefulness, behind timing. It's not betrayal. It's ambition without allegiance. Ambition on its own is not evil. It is the engine that drives men beyond their limits. It builds empires. It fuels revolutions. It turns farmers into kings. But when ambition isn't bound by loyalty, when it serves no flag, no face, no principle, it becomes a silent weapon, aimed directly at the heart of your power. These men don't rebel loudly. They don't raise banners. They don't shout in opposition. They sit quietly. They smile. They perform well. And they wait. Have you ever worked with someone who did everything right, but you never truly trusted them? They hit every mark, say all the right things. They're charming, but something feels off. You can't place it, but deep down, you know, this man serves no one. He only serves his own rise. And when the moment comes, when you falter, when the crowd starts asking questions, he will present himself as the solution, not with force, but with calmness, with reason, with polish. That's how power is stolen. Not with fire, but with silence. Machiavelli warned us. A man without loyalty is more dangerous than 1,000 rebels. Because rebels can be fought. But ambition without a master is a ghost. You can't hit it. You can't reason with it. You can only suffer its consequences. In ancient Rome, Emperor Tiberius trusted a man named Sejanus. He was brilliant, capable, respected, but he had no loyalty, no roots, no true allegiance. And when Tiberius began to isolate, Sejanus made his move. He positioned himself as the calm alternative, the stable hand, and almost took the throne without ever lifting a sword. Ask yourself now, who around you has talent, but no tie to you? Who always stays neutral? Who avoids commitment? Who praises everyone, but aligns with no one? These men are not your allies. They are shadows, waiting for yours to fade. So what do? You only have two choices. Either tie them to your destiny, through shared benefit, shared fear, shared future, or remove them before they grow. Because if they get strong enough to survive without you, they will eventually replace you, and they'll do it with a smile. These men don't need to disagree. They don't need to betray loudly. They only need time and silence, and a leader too blind to act. If someone came to your mind while hearing this, you already know. Send them this video, and if they message you back, asking if this was about them, it probably was. But there's a softer enemy still, one that doesn't carry weapons. It carries virtue, and it wears your downfall like a robe of righteousness. Some people never raise their voice. They don't rebel. They don't threaten. And yet, they still bring down the most powerful, not with swords, but with virtue. They don't challenge your position. They challenge your morality. Machiavelli saw this game long before it became common. He understood that when morality is used as a weapon, it's no longer about truth. It's about ambition in disguise. These people don't want to improve the kingdom. They want your place, but they know they can't take it through power. So they take it through guilt, through optics, through emotional theater. Have you ever been challenged, not because you failed, but because you weren't nice enough? Not because you were wrong, but because you didn't say it with a smile. That's how the game starts. They question your character. They say, shouldn't a leader be more compassionate? Shouldn't a leader show more humility? Don't we deserve someone better? They don't seek answers. They seek doubt. Because doubt softens power. It makes the crowd listen, not to your decisions, but to your flaws. They ask not what you've done, but how you made them feel. That's the emotional courtroom. And once you stand there, you've already lost something. Socrates was executed, not for violence, but for corrupting minds. Joan of Arc was burned, not for war, but for wearing armor like a man. They weren't defeated by armies. They were drowned in moral outrage, led by those who claim to be virtuous. Ask yourself, who around you speaks softly, but publicly questions your intentions? Who claims to care about what's right, but always does it in front of others? Because the truly ethical, they speak in private. They advise with respect. But the ones who go to the crowd, they want the crowd. They want the applause, the approval, the throne. And here's the trap. If you defend yourself, you look guilty. If you stay silent, you look cold. Either way, you're judged, not by facts, but by feelings. Machiavelli warned, never let morality become the rope around your throne. Because once you allow that rope to tighten, anyone who knows how to cry on cue can take your place. If someone ever stood in front of others and questioned your heart, your kindness, your intentions, not in private, not in loyalty, but in front of the crowd, then you've already met this enemy. Send this video to someone who uses morality to win battles they could never survive in open war. And remember, a leader is not chosen for being perfect. He's chosen for being effective. And effectiveness is rarely polite. If you're still here, you've seen the pattern. It wasn't just one betrayal. It wasn't just one hesitation. It was a series of quiet choices. And every one of them, you allowed. We've walked through 7 silent poisons, 7 quiet mistakes. Each one more dangerous than the last. Not because they scream, but because you tolerate them. You tolerated betrayal because you thought they'd return stronger. You tolerated cowardice because you called it caution. You tolerated flattery because it felt good when the world was loud. You tolerated public challenge because you feared looking insecure. You tolerated ingratitude because you didn't want to be harsh. You tolerated blind ambition because talent blinded you. And you tolerated moral attack because silence seemed noble. But now ask yourself, what did that tolerance buy you? Because every time you forgave one of them, you taught the room something far worse. That power doesn't need to be earned. It just needs to be close enough when you hesitate. And once you hesitate, your people don't follow you anymore. They calculate you. How strong are you now? How much longer will you last? Machiavelli never told you to be cruel. He told you to be clear. Because collapse doesn't come from attack. It comes from inside. From softness. From blurred lines. From silence. So remember this. Every man who falls fell first in his standards. Not his strategy. Not his strength. But in what he allowed. If you lead, if you build, if you protect something that must survive, etch this in your mind. Power is not about who follows you when you win. It's about who fears betraying you when you lose. The moment you tolerate what should have been cut, you are no longer building an empire. You're preparing its burial. So choose. Do you want to be remembered as the man who forgave too much? Or the one they never dared to test twice? If this series has shown you something, if you saw faces while hearing these words, if you felt the damage from things you allowed, then share this video with someone who still thinks power is about being liked. It's not. It's about knowing what must never be allowed, and enforcing that, without apology, because in a world of smiling traitors, your silence is their weapon. And your clarity is the only thing that keeps your crown. You've made it to the end. That means you already know. You're not like them. You don't survive by blending in. You survive by seeing things before they become threats. So now, the question is no longer who betrayed you. The question is, what will you do about it? Because knowing the truth is only power if you act on it. From this moment on, never explain yourself to the ungrateful. Never justify your strength to cowards. Never tolerate disrespect. Just to appear reasonable. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be respected. So make them remember. You were the one man they should have never underestimated. If this message lit something inside you, leave a comment. Name the moment you realized you've been too tolerant. And if you're done being soft, done being blind, done being betrayed, then subscribe now. Because this is just the beginning. We're building a mind so sharp, noli survives nerit, a presence so cold. No traitor stays comfortable in your shadow. You were warned. Now you are armed. Don't waste it.